tonight. It's great to see so many familiar faces in the room, many of whom were here when we opened this campus about 6+ months ago. You know, I couldn't be more excited that the Visitor Center is finally opening. We knew when we started designing the campus that we weren't going to open the Visitor Center right from day one. We wanted some time to move in, to get settled. I have to be honest that we did want to open the Visitor Center at a less busy time of the year, so we did pick kind of rainy February to open it, because it gives us a little time, I have to be honest, to shake it down. But I think what you'll see tonight, you'll feel like is actually pretty final. You know, when Bill and I think back about the journey of the foundation and our journey as a couple through this philanthropy work that we are now doing that's touched us so closely and that really will be what we do the rest of our lives, it really starts back with this very early story, this World Development Report that we read in 1997 and an article about that report that talked about so many children, 500,000 children dying every single year of a disease called rotavirus. And we kind of read this and it was described as a diarrheal disease, and we said to ourselves, well, diarrhea, one, that's not very exciting, but two, most kids, you don't hear kids in the United States dying of diarrhea. How could you have 500,000 kids dying of a disease like this? And we sent a note over to Bill's dad, who was helping us at that time, just beginning to get going with the foundation. And that began our learning journey. And we started to really learn about so many diseases that affect people in the developing world. And we also learned about the fact that there was this 20-year lag from a vaccine that works in a place like the United States or Japan and the UK that we already had and that would help people in the developing world, the exact same vaccine, and yet there was this enormous lag between the time it came out here and it got to the developing world. And so as we learned more and more with a group of partners and scientists, we said this is absolutely something that we feel like the foundation, because we believe in innovation, what we learned at, some of the things we learned at Microsoft, something the foundation wants to work on and something we want to be the cornerstone of our work. And so with that journey, it's not just a learning journey, it really is a journey about what can you do, what are the possibilities, that's what it's been for us. And we've now expanded that work into a whole host of areas, trying to take the green revolution, some of the lessons learned in Asia and also in Latin America, take those to Africa. Tried some of the things that we think can really help kids in the United States is all kids having the chance for great education, which we know so many do not have in the United States today. So those kind of became the cornerstones of our work. But along the way, as we started to do this work, we had more and more people come up to us and say, I'm kind of learning something about what you do, and I maybe get a piece of it. I'm interested, but what can I do? I'm actually inspired by what you're doing, which is not what we set out to do. It wasn't to inspire other people, is to create this impact, this change, and that still remains the mission of the foundation. But this question about how can I connect to the work, or how can I connect to this person or this issue that I hear about in the developing world that has nothing to do with the Gates Foundation. And so as we built this campus, we really started to think about that question and think about, well, how could we present the work? You know, something like an inactivated polio vaccine is not something that rolls off your tongue. And it's not something a lot of people want to learn all about the technology of that piece of science that a lot of us in this building actually care about. You know, so in a lot of the jargon we use wasn't easy to understand. But the idea that a child living because they got a very inexpensive vaccine, people do connect to that, particularly when they hear a story about some child that has a disease that you know about, like pneumonia. If any of you had a child with pneumonia, it's terrifying, and yet millions of kids die from that in the developing world. So the idea was, with the Visitor Center, how could we take the work that we do and bring it to a scale that people could understand the work, they could connect to it, they could hopefully connect to it in an interactive way, because one of the things Bill and I have experienced on our own, we take our kids through lots of museums, both back in DC, the Smithsonian, the museum, but a lot of, I have to be honest, also museums in Britain. And it's that interactive learning that really seems to engage people and help them ask the questions. And so we tried to make the Visitor Center very interactive because we wanted it to be a place that educated people, that motivated them, and at the end of the day inspired them to go out and do something that they connected to. And so one of my favorite galleries, when you go through the Visitor Center, you're going to see that there are basically 4 galleries. The first one is about understanding that this work is about people. The second one is understanding a bit about our foundation, that we're a family foundation rooted in the Northwest and our mission. The third is really trying to bring up what our partners do, because everything we do is done through partnerships. So you'll see this huge scroll that lists $5,000 grants and $15 million grants, but it talks about, that gallery talks about the work of the partners. It also, in that third gallery, though, brings up controversial work, because part of our learning has to hear outside voices. And so we bring up controversial issues that we hear, people that don't agree with us on climate change, people that don't agree with us on some of the biotech issues, people that don't agree with us on vaccines. We try to highlight some of the controversies and let people actually type in and tell us what they think, and we pay attention to what gets entered into that gallery, and it gets posted, and you'll see those come up on the computer screens. The final gallery, which is the gallery that I have to say for me is the most exciting, is really the inspiration gallery, which is after you kind of learn something about some of the work that we do and connect to some of the issues, even the controversial issues, what is it that you might go out and do? What might your family do if you have $100 or $1,000 or you have time? You're just interested in connecting with homelessness in the Northwest or education in the United States or somebody in the developing world. And so that last gallery is about how do you get inspired and share the ideas. So we're excited that you're here, and I just want to say, you know, this belief that all lives have equal value and that there's a chance to create change in the world, it takes an enormous global community to do that. And so I think the Visitor Center is a chance to hopefully bring some of those global conversations to the Pacific Northwest. We get lots of great visitors every year at the Seattle Center, so we hope they'll come across the street and see the Visitor Center. We hope school groups will come through, we hope you bring your kids through, and we hope you just basically enjoy yourselves and join us in this learning journey and figuring out what you might do as well. So thanks for being here.